In this video, I'm going to talk about a project that a friend requested. They wanted an Easter empty tomb project last year, and I made it, and they requested it again this year. So I decided to go ahead and make a video about how I created the project and how I did it. With that, let's get started. I started my journey for inspiration by looking at various areas. One of them was Pinterest, so I wanted to go check out what was there, and eventually I decided to pick this scene right here, and I copied that image down so that I could have it to use as a base image. Well, it's time to get into the design of this Easter resurrection or open tomb scene for your mantle or fireplace or for your coffee table to share with others. As I go through the process, it can be a little boring when you're going through the design, but I try to put as much into the design part of the Vectric stuff so that you can see how I go about thinking about the design and the different elements that are in there, sharing a couple shortcuts here and there. If that gets too boring for you because you're just really not into that, go ahead and fast forward and see me cut it and then see the end result towards the end. But I think you'll be missing out if you don't take the opportunity to learn as I go through the Vectric design itself. I tried to keep it as quick moving as I could. And with that, I'd also like some feedback from you if you think I cut too much out and I was trying to go too fast. I'm trying to be very conscious of what my viewers may want to see. And I know some want more detail and some want less. And I'm trying to find that middle ground. So if you would take some time and put something in the comment and let me know what you think about the pace, I'd appreciate that. That would be helpful. Also, if as you're watching it, you are learning things and think I deserve it, go ahead and give me a thumbs up while you're thinking about it at the time. And then if you want to see future videos like this, you can go ahead and subscribe. I'll mention that again at the end. With that, let's get into the design elements of this project. Once I knew the design I was working with, I went ahead and created a document in VCarve Pro. One of the first things I want to do is to import that bitmap that I previously had saved, and that's what you see me doing here, is going through and bringing in that bitmap. Once I had the bitmap imported, then I had to resize it to the size that I wanted to make the diagram, and that's what you see me doing here, is just resizing it. Now that I have the bitmap inserted, I'm going to need to trace it, and the easiest way to do that is just using the drawing tools. If you try to do bitmap trace, it'll be too noisy, and you see me there just kind of outlining the drawing to see what I'm going to have to do. It's important to realize that when you're doing this tracing, it's not critical that you're real exact, because this is just for inspiration. The first tool I'm going to use is the line tool. I just roughly go around and mark the key points, and later I'm going to come back and fine tune these points in the node mode and getting things squared up to be just what I want. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and speed things up here a little bit. One of the things you should look for is at one point I draw a guide along the bottom of the boulder, and the reason I do that is I want it to sit flat on the surface when I'm all done. So to make sure that it's nice and flat, I draw a guide there so that I can keep all of the bottoms solid. Now, what you saw me do there was hit the tab key once I hit the end of the boulder, and that'll be a common practice. I'll trace most of the boulder or whatever I'm tracing, and then I'll hit the tab key to go right across. Now what you see me doing is setting up layers for each of the things I'm going to develop, and when I get done, I'll have several layers, one for the big boulder, one for the medium boulder, one for the small boulder, and then one for the rolling boulder, one for the women, one for the angel, one for the cross, etc. So that's what you see me doing here, is just going through and starting to set up those layers. After listening back to my discussion about layers, it reminded me of this.
Shrimp is the fruit of the sea. You can barbecue it, boil it, broil it, bake it, saute it. There's shrimp kebabs, shrimp creole, shrimp gumbo, pan fried, deep fried, stir fried.
What you're watching now is me doing the tracing with the line draw tool, and then later I'll smooth it and finish off all the vectors. This took me about 15 minutes and it's been boiled down into 10 seconds, so to give you an idea. At this point in the process, I've created all of the vectors that I need for the carving of the boulders and the people and everything else. And now I need to set up the base of the display so that I can slot each of those boulders in there and hold it all together when I'm all said and done. The next moves you'll see me doing in this video then are setting up that base. A couple key things to look for is when I get ready to make the slot sizes, you will see me go up to the actual boulders and measure against those to make sure that the slot width is the right width. I still need to go make one final measurement on the thickness of the slot, i.e. the thickness of the plywood that I've actually used for this project. For design purposes, I used a nominal width of plywood of 0.75 inches. I'll need to fine tune that just before I make the real tool paths for the real cuts. As I was going through this tutorial, I just noticed this is supposed to be a cave in this middle rock and this front rock, and when I did the original vectors, I didn't do that. So what I want to do is take a moment and put the cave in so that when you move the boulder in front, that you will actually see an empty tomb. So that's what I'm going to do at this time. Okay, now we have the holes for the empty tomb. They match up perfect in the two boulders in front, and then if I take the rolling boulder, you can see it's over the top of that. So now it's time to make the last slot that the boulder will go in. So to do that, I want to make a couple guidelines to make it easier. So we know that the open tomb is going to stop right here. So that's where our slot will start. Make a copy of this for a second. Hit Command CV, and we know if we want the ability to open it completely, we need to come to this spot right here. And if we do that, then that rock will clear this hole. And so the next slot we need to make, grab a guide here for the bottom, because the bottom is what's going to be sliding here, is right there. And if we have that there, then we know we can slide the boulder from being completely closed to completely open, and we don't really need this guide at all. So now let's get rid of this, hit delete, and we know that's how big the slot has to be. Get it to move, hit the control key, and now we're going to take and resize that to those guides. And if our measurements are right, then we should be able to use this slotting arrangement to put the boulders, glue the boulders together and have the slide. So at this point, we pretty much have the design, and if I didn't want a decorative corner like a stone on there, then I could just use this. But I actually would like to make it look similar to what you see in this picture right here, with the edge of the base looking kind of like the edge of a stone and curved around, giving it a little shape. So that's what I'm going to do, is work on the edge of this base so it looks like this. Well, at this point in time, the design's pretty much done. Now I'm just going to do some last minute checks, like making sure the number of nodes are minimized, and that's what you see me doing, is using the Simplify Curves tool here, checking to make sure that we've got the least number of nodes. Then we can go into setting up the toolpaths. Well, now it's time to set up the toolpath, so let's get started with doing that. The first thing we want to do is create another sheet. Let me rename this sheet though first. This is the design sheet, so we don't ever mess with that unless we're changing the design. And then I'm going to make another sheet, and I'll make it the same size for right now. Add new, and this will be the cut sheet. We've got our thickness at 0.75 inches, so now we're going to come over, and you can see both sheets right here. And I'm going to take all of the vectors, and I'm going to copy them to that other sheet. Copy to cut sheet. So now they're all copied on the cut sheet, and I'm not going to mess with the design sheet from this point on. So let's set up the base first. Now the base, if I want to cut it, now I'm going to use a 1/8 inch compression bit on this plywood because it cuts very clean with that. And some of these slots I want to keep those tight. I'm not going to bother to put a fillet. I'm going to let the radius take care of it. And then if I need to adjust the size of the slot slightly, I'll do that. I'll test the slots before I actually take it off the CNC. What I want to do is make these all one vector. So I'm going to turn on the node edit tool, and I'm going to take and I'm going to cut the vector right here. And I'm going to cut the vector right here. I could just hit C also. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to hit C. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to hit C. Okay, and now at this point in time, we've got our slot open so that we can test our pieces in there. We know how to cut that. I've taken all of the pieces and separated them so I can use the nesting tool on the sheet that we're going to do the actual cuts on. And that's where we're going to pick up on, is we've just finished nesting the pieces and we're getting ready to set up our Toolpaths. So let's get going. For the Toolpath setup, we're going to use a 1/8 inch compression bit and a V bit. The V bit will be for decorative lines and the 1/8 inch compression bit will be for the profile cut. So let's start with the V bit. We're going to use it in a profile manner. We're going to hit 0.1 depth and we're going to select a 15 degree. It's going to be on the profile. It's going to be all I need. Now I need to select the vectors. So the vectors I want to select for that bit is this text and the decorative vector. So I'm holding the shift key. I'm holding this line right here. I'm holding this line right here, this line, this line. Whoop. Let's blow it up so you guys can see it a little better and I can see it better. Basically, these are all the decorative lines that I can use for painting these pieces later if I desire. Hit calculate lines and text, and then we're going to do the cutouts. So the cutout pieces, we're going to go ahead and use a profile cut. Do the outside. I want a compression bit, 1/8 inch. I'm going to go the full depth of the material, Z. Now I'm going with a 1/8 inch because of these small areas. Cut out, output, and we're going to select all closed vectors, associate with all toolpaths, hit close, calculate, and hit preview. And as you can see, our toolpath is going to work. What you didn't see is off screen. The first time I ran the toolpath, this angel wing had some problems, so I had to go back and fix those vectors so that the 1/8 inch compression bit would fit in there and cut it out. But otherwise it looks good. The thing that I don't like is I don't see the lines in there. Hit me preview on this one. There we go. Must not have checked that off. And so everything looks good and we're ready to actually go out and do our trial cuts. I was able to get out in the shop this morning just like I wanted to and get that Easter open tomb scene cut out. Here's what's left out of the plywood. One thing that you will see as you watch the video of me cutting this out is that instead of having 3/4 inch plywood, I found 1/2 inch plywood. I already had a sheet available, so I opted to change the design to use 1/2 inch plywood, and frankly, it looks pretty good if you ask me, and it's cheaper. So it's okay with me. With that, let's go through the cutting process, and then I'll show you what the Easter tomb looks like now that it's cut. We went ahead and did our first trial cut of pieces, and afterwards we did a test fit in the slots, and we noticed that they were a little loose and the slot had slid over a little bit. So we went back into VCarve Pro and made some adjustments and started a second trial cut. Well, now's as good a time as any. If you want this file free, all you need to do is go to my website and put in a coupon code of Easter. A coupon code of Easter. It will be posted in the next couple days. I'm just finishing up the final changes on the file to make sure it'll work for anybody that downloads it. Well, here's how it turned out. Everything looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I think it looks good. I really like how tight the slots are on this version. There are a couple adjustments that I had to make to the slot to make things fit in just right, and so I need to make those permanent. Once those adjustments are made, then I'll make this file available. As I said before, it'll be on my website in the next couple days. I will put something in my community page when it's ready for you to download. Oh, I forgot to mention, my next video will be taking the file, taking it over into Lightburn, and then building the same kind of scene or similar using 1/4-inch plywood in the laser for those that don't have a CNC. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming out in the next week. If you've learned something and you think I deserve it, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And as always, if you subscribe to the channel, you'll get further notices of when videos come out. And with that, I'll sign off for now.